Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to another episode of Endurance Chat. I am Michael Zalavari, and today we are gearing up for a brand new ELMS season, a hopefully less interrupted ELMS season. And to take us through all the ins and outs, I've been joined by Oliver Trovis. Ollie, good to hear from you again.
Yes, ELMS is back.
Yeah, best sportscar series in the world, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
awesome!
I'm so excited.
It is like I've not been this excited for a European for any sort of series in recent memory for so long. I think the last time I was this excited for a series was like 2017 V8 Supercars, because that was just a mess, but the best kind of mess.
Sounds like supercars.
It does. Anyway, before we crack into it properly, we must give a shout out and a big thank you to our sponsor, the racingline.app, your motorsport calendar service. Customize all your series and sessions so that way you don't ever miss a race or series or session of your favorite series. I'm doing a great job of this, aren't I? Yes, thank you to the Racing Line for sponsoring us, and yeah, making sure that they keep on top of all the calendar changes. That way you don't have to, because there is still a chance, a non-zero chance, that this calendar season for both the WC, the ELMS, and all the other sports cars around the world could be truncated with further COVID-afflicted outbreaks, etc., etc. Because this season, this calendar has already been afflicted by a change thanks to the COVID situation, hasn't it? It was meant to start a month ago, I think.
Yeah, everything's still been affected over the third wave in Europe over the winter and early spring. ELMS is sometimes, or goes a bit hand in hand tied with the World Endurance Championship. So that was obviously due to start with a prologue in Portimao pretty soon, and that's all been shuffled around. So that's had a knock-on effect onto the European Le Mans series. I've been caught out a few times. Things haven't been updated. So yes, having a aggregator that compiles all of the dates in one place like the Racing Line is pretty handy.
Yes, indeed. Especially when there's daylight savings changeovers that all happen on different weeks around the world. Like, for example, I've just gone through daylight savings changeover and it's made me sad because now it's dark and cold and wintry, which is the worst kind of year. But yeah, anyway, that'll help you not be sad because you'll be watching racing instead. So let's talk about some racing. European Le Mans Series, right? Starting with the official test at Barcelona coming up this week ahead of the first round, again at Barcelona. 6-round championship going to Barcelona, Red Bull Ring, Le Castellet, Monza, Spa-Francorchamps and Portimao. That's a pretty nice, tasty looking calendar if you just look at it like that. There's some really good tracks in that calendar.
Yeah, it's a big shame with the glaringly obvious missing out of the British market, considering a lot of the team's personnel are Brits. A lot of British drivers as well. Would have been nice at home race.
And British fans as well.
Yep. So, yeah, there's a bit of a glaring omission there, but a lot of these tracks are fab. Brilliant. So, yeah, the racing should be good across the season.
Yeah, and these are all tracks that have seen European Le Mans Series action prior. I think the last time Red Bull Ring was on the calendar was 2 seasons ago, and Portimao is returning this season, I think, after being not used last season because of F1, etc.
I think it was used in the finales. Was it not the finale? But it was moved because of the F1? I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure on the details. It has been a long time since the last European Le Mans Series.
It's been longer. It's been longer for Red Bull Ring that was removed, and I think everyone was sad about that when it was taken from the calendar. So for it to be brought back is brilliant.
It's so good. It's one of my favorite multi-class tracks because it's just incredibly fast and furious, and then very difficult to pass on as well. So that'll be a great race to watch. What is the track that you're most looking forward to this season? Obviously, had they been going to Silverstone, you would have got the lads together and you would have gone, wouldn't you?
Yeah, probably. It's been a while since we've been in person to even be allowed to go to racetracks, so I kind of miss the the sounds, the sights, the smells,
the visceral
everything.
nature of it. Yeah. So when was the last time you were actually at a racetrack?
That's a great question.
Sorry for everyone about to be sad in the audience after they think about this a little too long.
It might have been Le Mans 2019.
Wow. That is a long time.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
I will probably shed a tear the first time I get to hear or see or smell race cars again, which hopefully won't be too long. But anyway, back to your question.
Sorry for the group sads that I've just enforced on everyone.
Yes, I think we're all having a little feel session. I am looking forward to the Red Bull Ring returning. I think the most Monza, Spa, Portimao, they're all great rounds. I mean, yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah. I'm pretty thrilled that the Red Bull Ring is back. I'm also pretty keen for Monza. That falls like the weekend before my birthday, and I'll be on holidays then. So I'm literally just gonna like park myself down and do nothing for that entire weekend, but watch the European Le Mans series, which would be great. One thing I will say about this calendar is don't get your heart too set on it. I've heard some inklings and rumors and stuff from some people pretty in the know to say that should the situation change, they'll pretty much change the calendar on a whim. So it looks pretty great now though, but let's hope it stays looking pretty great and the world can get to some level of normality that continues to keep it pretty great, because that would be nice. I'd like a pretty nice world. And another interesting thing, the gap in the calendar for Le Mans is between rounds 4 and 5. Normally we see that fall a lot earlier in the season for the ELMS. Normally it's between, rounds 2 and 3 that they do they have the gap for Le Mans?
Yeah, this is interesting because it can play into the hands of the European Le Mans Series teams in terms of having... more preparation for the 24 hours. They can use like the majority of the European Le Mans series as a prep. We'll come on to some more reasons why this year is going to be more important in terms of using the European Le Mans series, in terms of the way that the cars are set up with their aero and things like that for the 24 hours. So I think this plays into the hands of European Le Mans Series teams because they have a lot more. They have a lot more running than usual to gather data, etc., etc.
And that is going to be a really important point, because on April Fool's Day of all days to release information like this, the WC and the ELMS and the ACO put out a release or announcement about the changing of the LMP2 class again. So for those who have been out of the loop, because the LMH class is going to be a little slower than the LMP1 class used to be, as a run-on effect, that's now going to slow down the LMP2 class. And everyone was happy with that. There was meant to be like a 40 horsepower reduction in terms of a little bit of so a new exhaust and a rev limit or whatever was meant to lower that down, and that's what we saw at the Asian Le Mans series. So we were looking at the new LMP2 pace at the Asian Le Mans series. Apparently the stratification, which is the word that they're using now to unify this slowing down of the subsequent classes, the stratification has been further knocked back, and they decided to release this on an April Fool's Day for some god unknown reason. But there is going to be a lot of reason for new testing, and they're going to get a lot of use out of the testing because the changes have been massive. So let's go through some of these changes compared to where they were meant to be for the Asian Le Mans series. The Asian Le Mans series was meant to be the new P2 pace. Now what they're saying is that they're getting rid of the new spec tyre that was meant to be in for the LMP2 class. That was scrapped because, according to the ACO, it had problems with drivability. So they need a plan B for the tyres. They've dropped power down a bit further, down by 50 kilowatts more, I think. Can you
50 kilowatts total.
50 kilowatts total. So it was 20 kilowatts initially, 50 kilowatts total. So now it's around 400 kilowatts out of those Gibson engines, those V8 Gibson engines. They've increased the weight up about 20 kilos, and they are only using the Le Mans aero packages. So from round 2, they're making that change because some teams are already at Barcelona doing testing. So that's pretty widespread changes, Ollie. What were your reaction when you first saw it? Because I was blown away.
Well, as we mentioned, the date, I thought it was a bit of a joke, like a haha, good one, ACO. But no, it was real. Yes, it's frustrating when you think about the teams that have planned already for the season. A handful of days beforehand, for example, TDS, who operate Racing Team Nederland, and I think Real Team Racing for WEC, they had tested the cars as is in high downforce spec for what they rightly assumed to be what they were going to be racing with. And all of that data is now trash because it's not representative of the car that they're racing with. Now, that takes up track time in terms of cost to the team and to the amateurs who are paying for it. That takes up time of their test days that they're allowed in terms of allowance. It costs in terms of wear parts, in terms of wearing out your brakes, wearing out your engine, that sort of thing, your gearbox. Precisely. It's a waste of the people's time. It's a bit crap.
A bit crap is a very light way of putting it.
Well, yeah, and then you think about the teams that have never used in before or never even expected to need Le Mans Aero kits. You've got teams that have just joined LMP2 class racing. They've just bought a car that comes with the standard high downforce aero that's used everywhere outside of Le Mans pretty much. They've now got to get rid of that bodywork somehow or just put it in a storeroom and never use it again. They've got to now go to Orica and say, hey, I need to buy X number of really expensive front ends. That's the main change to the cars. It's wasteful. It's expensive. That and the planning of the parts supply is a bit of a joke. Orica's fine. Yeah, they'll make loads of money out of it because they're getting a lot more business. They're not going to go through that many body kits in a season with crashes. Well, you never know because there are quite a few amateurs in the bronze drivers in these P2s, but still, they're going to be making a lot of money. Hopefully, they can supply them in time. As you mentioned, Barcelona, the first round will be standard as what we're used to, but then from the Red Bull Ring onwards, we're going to have the Le Mans Aero kit, which is a slightly in the main slightly different front end. Hopefully all those parts can be supplied because it would be a bit crap if the teams didn't have enough spares because of supply problems, and if they have any damage, they're just going to have to be stuck with it. It's
that's certainly one big aspect of it, the supply lines. And you feel for teams like G-Drive or like as a part of Algarve or TDS who may have chosen to do the Asian Le Mans Series as part of their testing program for the European Le Mans Series and for the WC and for Le Mans. All of a sudden that data gets thrown out the window. And the reason it gets thrown out the window is because these aren't small changes. You're reducing the power by 10% almost. That's not insignificant. And the downforce change with the Le Mans Aero kit is, again, not insignificant, it's substantial, and the extra weight as well. All of these things add stress to a car, and that means that the testing that you've done in the off season just gets thrown out the window. And I had a chat to Graham Goodwin about this during the week. Talking to him about it, he says that for some teams, the amount of testing that they've done, the amount of personnel that they've been bringing to racetracks, the track time, the driver time, the parts that they've been using, that would be up in the six figures of costs that they are literally just throwing out of the window because of these changes so late on in the piece. That's a lot of money to just be throwing away. And, as you said, that's personnel at the racetracks, that's feeding these personnel, that's housing these personnel, that's paying for their time, that's paying for the consumables, tires, fuel, fatigue on the parts. There's a lot of cost going on, and I don't know if they're not confident that there's going to be enough of a gap. Whereas, there was barely any gap in the WEC at Le Mans last year. P2 were doing the same Sector 1 times. I mean, I know Sector 1's not the same, the whole track, but it's not like there wasn't a gap present. To me, it doesn't really make sense. They must be very nervous, the ACO, about how fast Hypercar is going to be, because they couldn't just. It doesn't make sense to make that change that late on in the piece.
Yeah, they have bodged or botched it. Well, both phrases apply, really. It's
just
been,
ACO things.
It is very last minute. It's a bit of an embarrassment, to be honest. The key, I think, is if you look at the top end of performance of P2 and it kind of nibbling at the heels of the new top class. I suppose they don't want to make the top class look bad, but also it's where the amateurs sit, and they're encouraging bronzes to join with the Pro-Am subclass in the WEC and in ELMS, but these bronzes are they vary in driving talent, and the least high-performing drivers might get in the way a lot with the GT Pro class in WEC, for example. A little question that I want to put to you, just as we're talking about how this affects WEC, but not necessarily so much with ELMS. Well, it would in terms of crossover performance with P3s potentially, but what do you think about having these WEC impacts knocking on to European Le Mans Series? Because obviously the new top class for ACO racing is not in European Le Mans Series. So do you think these changes should have been just ignored for European Le Mans Series and let them do their thing? And then whenever they align and European Le Mans teams that go to WEC for one-off rounds, or if they share a chassis between, then they make the changes for WEC rounds, and just then there's less of a knock-on effect.
Yeah, look, I want to say yes. I want to say leave the ELMS and Asian Le Mans Series, and to be fair, also the IMSA LMP2 class unshackled as its fastest possible outcome. But that doesn't really make sense in terms of a unified P2 class, right?
Yep.
The good one of the things about the LMP2 class in the ELMS specifically, that people will it contributes to the great racing, sure, but also the point of doing the LMP2 class in the ELMS isn't just to win that class or to race in that class. It's as a setup for Le Mans, and what you're learning by running in that class, the setups, the strategies, the etc, that is all able to be transferred to Le Mans. And if you don't have that, then you're kind of losing a little bit of
do a WEC round then.
Pardon?
On the other hand, to that, just do a WEC round then.
Yeah, but
if you want practice, it'll be Spa.
Yeah, one round, or Portimao, that's fine. But I don't think it is as easy to just say, just jump into the WEC for a round, because that's going to have its own costs that are associated with it as well. And something that we are, talking massively about in motorsport worldwide at the moment is cost cutting and managing costs and making sure that we don't outspend a category's lifetime, if that makes sense. So we're not killing categories by having too much cost associated with them. So I think if you do it globally, everyone's on the same playing field. Data's transferable, experience is transferable. Remember, these AM drivers are going to be expecting a level of performance now. If they and adjusting to that level of performance isn't going to be too hard for a pro driver, because that's their job. But for an amateur, it might be something that they struggle with. You know, Heinrich Hedman, for example, was trash in a P1 car, but actually managed to not be as trash in a P2 car. So I think having it unified is the best plan. I wish they had done this 5 months ago, 4 months ago, instead of literally 3 weeks from when they were meant to be racing.
Yeah, it's all a bit mismanaged in terms of planning the pace better in advance, then planning a plan B and having that ready to go, so the teams know what's going to happen if the brand new tyres aren't right first time. Yeah, these teams didn't know this was going to be an opportunity, and yeah, it pisses off the amateur drivers. They might be made to look stupid by the good drivers if there's a good driver in an LMP3.
Malte Jacobsen or a Wayne Lloyd or someone like that, or Emmanuel Maldonado.
Yes, maybe, and so they're getting pissed off. They might not have, if they knew about this going into it, they might not have put their money up front, and so
absolutely.
It's pissing off entries, and they might pull out at the end of the season because of moves like this.
Yeah, it is a bit of a bait and switch that's gone on here in terms of the LMP2 category. And I can certainly feel sensitive to some of the amateurs who have invested that money in testing and want to race the fastest toy that they can. I mean, sure, that's fine, but the fact that now that's getting slowed down to a point where they might not enjoy it, and like it could be at some corners in some places that you're on the limit of aerodynamic efficiency because you've got added weight, you've got tires. Okay, so they're running last year's tires. That's what they're keeping, which is fine. But, you know, it's not the same as having a new tire made for this adjusted category. The less engine power means you're going to have less speed globally around the track. So, and a lower downforce kit, you might actually see cars being incapable of driving at that aerodynamic efficiency that they need to be in order to be lapping these circuits in a safe and competitive way. Like,
it'll be safe. They've still got a lot of downforce.
Yeah, okay, but like you know, some of the parts in the circuit that are going to be where you're on the border of aerodynamic efficiency, like say Poon or something like that. You know, you could see cars get much more out of shape through there, especially at the hands of AM drivers, because they're just not used to the lack of aerodynamic efficiency through those parts of the track.
Well, I think it's not going to be that much of an issue for the pro drivers. Maybe in qualifying when they just throw the cars around, then some might become unstuck, especially if there's a windy ambient conditions around or whatever. But I think this is more going to be an impact for the less experienced drivers, because they might not be as understanding of how the cars would feel, especially with less testing this spring, how the cars feel with less downforce. The better amateur drivers will be able to cope better, and the worse amateur drivers won't. So I expect the amateur driving quality to be a bigger, wider spread. If you've got a Super Silver, surely they're going to be
they'll be laughing,
able to cope. You remember the practice sessions from Le Mans last year, where we had Mikkel Jensen in the G Drive talking about setting up the car to the race engineer.
Yeah,
and he was a silver rated driver. You think about how he's going to set up the car or be competent at setting up the car with less downforce compared to a bronze driver. There's going to be night and day difference. So I don't want to see this spread the P2 class out, because the racing is fantastic. It has been over the last 3 years at least. To see that spread out potentially when amateurs are in the car, or split the bronzes being miles back and compared to the silver amateur drivers, we'll have to wait and see on that. But I am a little bit scared about something like that.
Yeah, it's certainly going to look different, and I'm not sure if it's going to look as exciting as it has done. Whether that be because the pace isn't there. I mean, you can have very exciting lower class races, but there is something just absolutely terrifying about a swarm of 17, 18, 16 LMP2 cars firing their way through like a very high downforce section. Like, it's just if that same sort of visceral feeling isn't there, you could see the series start to lose fans and start to lose competitors as well. I had a point that I was going to make here, and it has left my head. Oh, yes, here it is. Something interesting that I've just noticed in the bottom of the DSC article, which details these changes. The new level of performance will be introduced in all competitions where LMP2 cars eligible to compete in the 24 Hours of Le Mans are in use. And it has in brackets the World Endurance Championship, the European Le Mans Series, and the Asian Le Mans Series. So this isn't affecting IMSA, question mark?
They already had these sorts of restrictions applied to the cars. So they, for example, they've had to use Le Mans gearing.
Yeah.
To slow the car's acceleration out of the corners because they would get in the way of the DPIs lapping them. They've had power reductions already applied when they did the class split.
Oh, which is still the dumbest part of the entire IMSA series. Sorry.
Yes, they do. I believe that they would. I believe still have high downforce aero. So, by all means, if you're a European P2 team and you want to use your bodywork you already have, go and race Daytona or anywhere in IMSA, or send all the aero front ends in the post. Yeah. There may be some teams that want them. So yes, I think the big difference between IMSA P2 as well would be the tyres. Do they not use Michelin rubber? Whereas we obviously are switching to removing the tyre war to just be Goodyears in Europe.
Yes. Yeah, so that's definitely going to be a big factor. It would be nice if the IMSA P2 class could get some more entrants, but I guess it doesn't really have a market because of the way that IMSA mismanaged the class. Fantastic. I'm still not over that. 2017 in IMSA was the best season of action, and they killed it. Look at how they massacred my boy. Honestly, it was still not over that. Anyway, something you did mention was a splitting of amateurs throughout the race, whether that be because of super silvers versus bronzes. And part of that as well is because of the new Pro-Am category that the ELMS is introducing in LMP2. So we have in front of us now the ELMS entry list, the full season entry list, which features 16 LMP2 cars, along with 7 Pro-Am. So included in that is 7 Pro-Am competitors. How do you feel about the Pro-Am class? Do you think this is something that is necessary? Because there's been rumbling about it for a while.
So, just as a bit of background, in the WEC, I don't know if they did this for European Le Mans Series last season as well, but they kind of had like a participation trophy for the best bronze driver in P2 on the podium and gave them a little trophy. For those that don't know as well, the P2 category, you need at least one silver or below ranked driver. And for competitive reasons, a lot of teams, they have a silver and then 2 professional drivers.
Yeah. And then if you want a really big aim in the system, that silver will be someone like Phil Hansen or Mikkel Jensen, or someone who definitely shouldn't be a silver but somehow is a silver. Wasn't Job van Uitert a silver driver, a super silver driver for a while?
Yes, he was. And he's certainly made the jump up to being a professional. So yeah, this is kind of they don't want to split the class in two because you can still win the race as a bronze rated driver. If you have the right crew, you might have a bit of luck. So for them to cut the class in half, yeah, you might be in the European Le Mans Series, you're still going for the overall win, but it's still clunky to completely split the class in two. But then also it's a bit weird because it kind of means nothing as well to win the Pro-Am class. It's kind of like a subcategory within the class, but it isn't. And then the naming of it,
Go ahead, sorry.
They're both Pro-Am. The naming of it, they're both Pro-Am. So, it's just Pro-Am good and Pro-Am bad, I guess.
Yeah. I would have been content with it being called like Pro Bronze or just Bronze. LMP2 Bronze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Because that's the point, right? The point is to allow bronze drivers to feel more involved in winning stuff in the class. Because I don't think, off the top of my head, there has been an ELMS race that has been won with a bronze driver. I think there has... Henry Hedman, yes, that's actually a good point. And that was with Dragon Speed, with Nicolas Lapierre and Ben Hanley, I would expect. I'm pretty sure Fritz van Aert has won a WEC race.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and Cool Racing has won a WEC race, but that was because Alexander Cogny was injured and couldn't race.
Yes, but they've still done bloody well in European Le Mans Series Cool Racing
absolutely.
As well. So, it is possible. You need luck. You need bloody good pro drivers. You need good team. And yeah, you're bronze to drive a clean race with the minimum amount of seat time.
Yeah, exactly.
And hopefully have some of that time behind a safety car. But it is still possible. And maybe having the Pro-Am kind of makes these bronzes that do well look less of an amazing feat kind of thing, like it was before.
How do you mean?
Still, I'm still pulling for Pro-Am cars to do well, and maybe it's a good thing to highlight them and say, hey, look, who's the best Pro-Am car running at the moment at the hourly, update, and you glance down the timing and you see which one is the best in Pro-Am, punching above their weight. So maybe it's a good way in that respect, but it kind of just feels a bit weird. But highlighting these bronze drivers when they're doing well is a good thing. So
I would honestly be happy with the concept if the Pro-Am class was set up like the GT class, in which you need a bronze and at least a silver or lower, and then you can have a pro. Because some of these Pro-Am cars are just absolutely shonky. So the one that I am going to point out, and then we can move into talking about some of the other cars and drivers. Racing Team Turkey. You have Harry Tinknell and Charlie Eastwood, who are professional drivers in that car. And then also Sally Yolick, who, yes, sure, he's a bronze, but he's probably one of the best bronze drivers to come out of the WEC in the last 5 years. So, like, that car should absolutely not be in this Pro-Am category when you have cars and drivers who are made up entirely of bronze and silver drivers. You know, you have the IDEX Sport Car, which is actually ERA Motorsports from the US, if you've been following that. So you have Dwight Merriman, Kyle Tilley, and Ryan DL. DL's a great driver, fantastic. But Merriman and Tilley are kind of crap, even though they won the Daytona 24 Hours in class. But can you kind of see the kind of dichotomy in that? It's you've got a bronze driver who's basically not basically, a Le Mans and a Series champion paired up with two absolute top professionals. And then on the other hand, you have what equates to the chiropractor and his mates going for a lap.
Yeah, and you have if you have a team like Racing Team Turkey that you highlight, where your bronze is pretty much going to be a silver soon, you'd expect, because of the amount of things they're winning. And then you compare that to a team that's, let's say, maybe has 3 silvers. There's going to be an overlap there, and the Pro-Am and the non-Pro-Am, it doesn't tell the whole picture.
No.
So we're not shitting on these Pro-Am cars as, they're all going to be behind the other non-Pro-Am entries. They're still going to be in the mix. It's just something to think about in terms of having the bronze drivers. Now, yes, Racing Team Turkey, I think they're kind of punching above their weight in terms of having a bronze in their car, looking at the rest of the lineup, but also it's a pretty good team behind it. There are other examples, you could argue Cool Racing as well, because Borger's still really quick for being a silver. I'm surprised he's still a silver.
He's not. He's been updated to gold on the official entry list.
Finally,
yeah, I know, right?
Oh, I've been calling for it for a while, and I
absolutely deserved. And I mean that with no offense, but he should have been a gold for a long time prior to now.
Yes, but that's a prime example to compare with as well. They have Quan Yi in the car, who's a bronze. I'm trying not to be harsh, but I don't think he's too quick. But on the other hand, his teammates are bloody quick.
Yeah.
So these guys, and they know how to set the car up.
Yes.
The Cool Racing Team Turkey, they are still going to kind of break the mold of Pro-Am.
Absolutely. We should talk about a few of the teams in the European Le Mans Series now that we've had that discussion. There's 4 new teams jumping up to P2. Well, 3 plus 1, really. So we've already mentioned Racing Team Turkey, which you can kind of analogize as TF Sport. Because they're run by TF Sport. So that's basically the GTEM car from last season, pumped straight into the LMP2 class. We've made mention of Charlie Eastwood. They're staying together and they're adding Harry Tincknell as opposed to Johnny Adam. I think that's a win. I think Tincknell is a very, very good driver and I respect him a lot. Also, we've got Ultimate stepping up from LMP3. So they're jumping into the LMP, the Pro-Am category, and they have Matteo Lahaye, Jean-Baptiste Lahaye, and Francois Hérault, who I'm pretty sure were both of the Lahayes in the LMP3 car?
Yes, they were.
And then
Triple Am.
Yeah, Triple Am. So that's going to be one of the cars that maybe is going to be falling away in that Pro-Am category. Team WRT are also in European Le Mans Series. There's been a lot of hype and bother about this team because the first listed driver in Team WRT was Robert Kubica. So he's certainly going to attract a lot of attention. And in that car as well is Louis Delatraz, who raced in the Rebellion last year, if I recall correctly, and Yifei Ye, who put a sterling effort in the Asian Le Mans Series in one of the G-Drive cars. So that's a pretty cool lineup. It's a pretty scary lineup.
Yifei Ye won the Asian Le Mans Series.
Yeah.
So, that depending on how Robert Kubica does as a pro in that car, I've got faith in Louis Delatraz and Yifei Ye against other silvers. I think they're in a really good shout for doing well with at least race wins.
Yeah.
Team WRT are super pro in the way that they run things, so they've got at least that side sorted.
Yeah. Yifei, so he's the silver in that car, right? That shouldn't be allowed. That's not possible. Like, you can't tell me that's possible. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and there are some others that we'll come on to as well.
Oh my gosh, we're going to use that word. This is a stacked grid and it's kind of terrifying. There's also a second G-Drive racing car, which has been an anomaly. Normally in the European Le Mans Series, at least we've seen one G-Drive racing car. Part of that is because it's actually G-Drive sponsored by Algarve or run by Algarve, or Algarve is actually an Algarve Pro racing car, but with G-Drive on the side of it. It's a weird thing. So one of those G-Drive cars has the normal suspect of Roman Rusinov, but also in that car, which is the all-pro car, you have, all-pro, the championship contender, we'll call it. You have Nick De Vries and Franco Colapinto, who was quite possibly the breakout driver of the Asian Le Mans Series earlier in the year. 17 years old, still a silver, by far the best driver in the Asian Le Mans Series paddock.
The evil empire has returned.
Yeah, it's going to
G-Drive have taken the mantle back.
Yes, it's gonna be G Drive versus United once again. But that's a terrifying looking car. You almost couldn't get three better drivers on the grid, let alone a better. Or you could maybe find a better gold, but still, Rusinov is absolutely no slouch.
Yeah, I think the question mark that people aren't talking about so much is it is Algarve Pro operating the car.
Yeah.
Now, so they've had a big merry-go-round of working with different teams operating the cars, have G-Drive. Now they've moved from TDS, I would say as a step down, to Algarve Pro.
Yeah.
TDS are kind of like the gold standard or one of the gold standards for P2 racing, or have been for the past few years. I'm yet to see or be convinced about this move, being for performance reasons. But yeah, all Algarve Pro have to do is keep it clean in the pits and just let their drivers do the talking.
Yeah.
Whether they can set the car up well, that's another question as well, obviously, for them to do the talking on track. But yeah, that's a little asterisk, like holding back from giving them the title already. But yeah, and then you mentioned the second team in the Pro-Am category. That's kind of like what was it the RLR M Sport Tower Events car, which had John Falb in it, maybe?
No,
I can't remember. Or was that
Tower
John
Events,
Ferrano?
Yeah, the Tower Events is John Ferrano.
Okay.
Falb is the Algarve Pro amateur driver, so he's the one paying for the thing. And like his drivers are still pretty good. You know, he's got Rui Andrada, who has more middle names and I can't remember them at the moment, and Pietro Fittipaldi. So you know they're still quality drivers, but you know with John Falb, they're not going to be an overall contender unless they just happen to be good.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if it comes down to Pietro Fittipaldi being behind the safety car, right up behind someone's bumper, for a sprint to the line, yeah, sure, they can do it. I mean, yeah.
The other Algarve Pro racing car has some really interesting sort of names in there. So we got Richard Bradley, who's a pretty well-known quantity, and then Ferdinand Hatzberg, who was driving the G-Drive car over in the Asian Le Mans series, and Diego Menchada, who you would have remembered if you were into Blancpain GT, the Triple F Lamborghini he was driving over there. So really interesting pickup there. Not someone who I'd really been tracking for a while.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting entry to watch. It's kind of come a bit out of nowhere. Like if you don't watch Blancpain and concentrate on the lower classes.
Sorry.
Yeah. If you didn't watch Blancpain when it was called Blancpain and you weren't concentrating on the lower classes, then you wouldn't have any idea who Diego is. But yeah, I think this is going to be quite a tidy entry. Yeah, I'm looking out for this one.
It'll be pretty tasty. Might fly under the radar. Might be something like a little bit of a, say maybe a Racing Team Netherlands or something like that in the past, who just kind of snuck up on you without realizing how good they actually are. Well, so we've already mentioned this evil empire. We should mention the other evil empire, because the other evil empire has gone through some big changes. So of course we're talking about United Autosports. Firstly, the big change for them is that they're incredible super silver that has been supering all of the silver in the last 2 seasons is now gold. Phil Hansen has been upgraded to gold, so he can no longer fulfill the super silver role in the team. But that's okay, because now they have Tom Gamble to do that for them in the number 22, and they've added to that Jonathan Aberdeen. So from, I believe that South Africa is the signature there. Can you tell me anything about Aberdeen? Because I've never heard of him before.
I think he did DTM.
Okay.
But not competitively. I don't remember.
Yeah, okay, so that's interesting to me, because I would have expected in that car to keep some level of continuity with, Felipe Albuquerque or Job Van Uytert or Alex Brundle or someone like that, someone who has been in the United Autosport stable for a while, but they've kind of, it seems like they've thrown the baby out with the bathwater here with Phil Hansen being upgraded to gold.
Yeah, it does feel a bit weird not having the old guard of, as you mentioned, of their pro drivers. Whether Phil can step up and take on that experienced role as the team, within the team rather, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, a bit of an unknown quantity in this car now. So we can't expect them to win every race like we could last season. I'm looking forward to it. And then their second car as well. That's really interesting. So Manuel Maldonado, who did Asian Le Mans Series in the United P3 car as a prep for ACO or introduction to ACO racing, is joined by Job van Uytert, as you mentioned, and Nico Jaman. Now that is quite exciting.
So I think that of the two cars is now the stronger car, but what makes that lineup so exciting for you?
Well, I think it's the Job van Uytert and Nico Jaman are two bloody quick drivers. And then there's the kind of interesting aspect of Maldonado growing his career as the amateur driver in there. I think it's exciting.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I think Job van Uytert is probably one of the best P2 drivers around at the moment, which is kind of scary to say. But I think the only thing that I can really think of that's missing from the United Autosports Challenge is a proper experienced, seasoned driver. You know, if you look
they don't have a legend.
Yeah, if you look at their driver lineup from last season, you had Felipe Albuquerque, Paul di Resta, and Alex Brundle in those cars. You know, drivers that have been around P2 cars for ages and been winning everything in them. So all three of them had vacated those seats, and it's a fresh lineup, but it doesn't have that same scary factor as it used to.
Yeah, there is still that unknown because there's so much new. So
the scientist in me is not happy about changing so many variables without testing in between.
Exactly. Yeah, less testing for sure. But yeah, also Will Owen, the amateur for the second car, historically for the last few seasons has moved on. I can't think of the top of my head where he's moved on to. That's a bit of a miss because he was really stepping up his game the last season. But pastures new with Manuel Maldonado, and yeah, looking forward to him silencing a lot of nasty memes.
Yes. For some people, their name is a blessing, and for others, it might be just a little bit of a curse. He did very well in the Asian Le Mans Series, though. Like, that car won the championship pretty convincingly in the end.
Yeah, but P3 is a different beast. So we'll see.
This is true. Other interesting names that we haven't yet talked about. Duquesne is returning. This is someone that you've... we like to say it's your favourite team, but really you just picked them once for that one fantasy WEC when they had a former Porsche LMP1 driver whose name escapes me. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name in as their pro.
French. Lap
Roman
record.
Dumas, that's it.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. We did it. But still, Duquesne Racing, Duquesne team, Tristan Gomedy and Memo Rojas with Rene Binder as the amateur. That's a pretty good team. That's a pretty good lineup.
Yeah, I think I've put this down as a dark horse. I think Rene Binder's okay. He has a bit of P1 experience with the bicollars. Let's not forget. Some of it was okay, some of it wasn't. Backwards, off track. But on the other hand, some of the times he had damage he was crashed into.
Yeah.
So I think this they've got good pros in this car. Memo Rojas, previous ELMS champion as
with
well.
Dragon Speed?
With IDEC.
Oh, with IDEC. Oh, yeah, of
IDEC.
course. That was a cool season.
Yeah, it was right down to the wire. Um, and yeah, I think Tristan Gomandi's a pretty safe pair of hands as well. So um, I think this is one to look out for.
You'd hope it
Remember,
was a.
they've changed to a black and green, not black and blue. So
Oh, I prefer the black and blue, honestly. What is it with all these teams change from green to blue to green, rather?
how many
I don't
have
get
done
it.
that?
Nah, it's just don't mind.
They're
Don't
all
mind
blue.
me. I'm just yeah. They are. They were for a time all blue. Another team to look at. Graph Racing. We used to see Graph Racing challenge for overall wins. Now, not so much. They've gone with a Pro-Am category car. Vincent Capillier, Maxime Robin, and Arnold Robin. So that's going to be not a car to really get your hopes up about. I used to really like the Graph Racing team. I think their Le Mans challenge last year was pretty incredible. So a little disappointed to see that group of Frenchies maybe not have the same firepower that they used to. But what that has meant is that firepower has moved to Panis Racing. This is, of course, the team run by or owned by Julien Canal, which owns the McDonald's on in the Circuit de la Sarthe. So he is driving with Will Stevens and James Allen. Now that is a formidable group, I think.
Yeah, Will Stevens has had pole positions in the Panis Racing entry. James Allen has been moving around a bit. I think he was at Graf last season.
He
did
was
some
at
time
Graf.
in Dragon Speed. So yeah, they're two bloody quick pro drivers to go with Julien Canal, who is pretty experienced. Let's not forget in LMP2 racing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've definitely seen that car. It is the car with the McDonald's logo everywhere on it, and it kind of looks awful, but I love it. So there's your LMP2 category. Well, we haven't mentioned Dragon Speed USA. We did mention IDEX Sport. Dragon Speed, it's Henrik Hedman and friends. Has he still got Ben Hanley with him?
Yeah, it's put down with a typo as Ben Haley.
Brilliant.
On the entry list, and then for the first round they've got Ricky Taylor. I think it's going to be like an all-stars merry-go-round revolving door kind of seat in the car where they're just bringing in maybe some American IMSA drivers and just let them drive with Henrik Hedman for a race.
Yeah, that seems like that would be a pretty decent merry-go-round. I'd be in for that. And we haven't mentioned BHK Motorsport, who I believe are stepping up from LMP3. They've got Franco Draconi and Sergio Campagna as their two drivers. And they're racing not in the Pro-Am category because Campagna's a gold. So interesting. I wonder if they've made that shift because Campagna got upgraded, or if maybe he didn't get upgraded. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think BHK were in last season, and was that the Arjun Miney entry? I can't remember. Or was that RLR, the Tower event car? I don't expect much, to be honest. I don't know much about this entry. Probably why we're talking about it last. Yeah, we'll see, I guess.
So yeah, that is your 16-car LMP2 field. Not as big as we've seen in previous seasons, but still absolute quality nonetheless. Just looking at the drivers and the names, the teams that we've mentioned, do you want to have a sneaky go at a championship contender? Who would you reckon would be your top three? And I'll give you a supplementary, a +1.
I don't know in any order. I cannot give you an order, but I can give you a top three.
Okay.
And the top three would be the 26 G Drive. Okay, so the one with the bloody good lineup. Then I'm going to put my neck on the line and go for the 32 United Autosports.
Yep, so that's Van Oyter, Jamin, and Maldonado.
Yeah, and then WRT.
You believe in Kubica that much?
The third one. I believe in him more than I believe in the hate of him.
Fair.
So,
Yeah.
to put it that way around, I think it's just like we touched on about Maldonado. Just the other Maldonado. A lot of people were crapping on him moving to P2, and then actually he did pretty bloody good. So it's just people remember his one crash at Le Mans.
Yeah.
Now, yes, that crash was more valuable than all of his other races doing well, but let's see what he can do first before we shit all over him.
Yeah.
And then the extra +1. Oh, I don't know. I'm putting it between Panis Racing and Duquesne. Let's go with Duquesne.
Yeah, I thought you'd jump with Duquesne. I'm pretty on board. The only question mark I have is that third place. I think of the three teams that you mentioned there, WRT, Duquesne, and Panis, I actually reckon Panis Racing will take that third place. The 26 and the 32 do look pretty scary in terms of their driver lineups. I'd probably give it to G Drive more than the United Autosports. I think they've just changed a little too much. I'm 100% willing to be proven wrong. If they keep their streak of LMP2 victories alive, that'll be incredible. But that's what I'm going. And what about Pro-Am? Who do you think out of Cool Racing and Racing Team Turkey will be the Pro-Am winners?
It's a great question. I think Cool Racing a lot more settled, because Racing Team Turkey is more of a new entity for P2. So, I'm going to go with Cool Racing on that one.
They still have TDS. It is still TF Sport. So as far as an organisation, they're settled, but they're not settled in LMP2. So I will concede that. I reckon you're on the ball there. It's going to be an interesting season in P2. I hope that the changes that they've made don't result in lower entries and the cars looking sort of lethargic. I hope they still look like cool LMP2 cars that we've come to be familiar with over the past 4 seasons.
Yeah. And we've had a long wait, so I think people will put that behind them a little bit when we finally get back to racing.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited. Something we haven't made mention of, but it's a kind of academic at this point. All Oricas, so there's no chassis differentiation. I mean, it depends on whether or not you count the Aurus as a different chassis, but I don't. It's the same thing. So there shouldn't be any chassis malarkey. It is a bit of a shame to not have any Ligiers, so there's no Inter-Europol on the grid this season. There's no Thunderhead Carlin. There's no Cetilar Valour Corsa, because they're now racing a GT car. The convergence of chassis technology has been sad to see, but unfortunately not all that unexpected. But that is LMP2, and so a bunch of these cars will probably end up at Le Mans, so we'll see plenty of them as well. And Brujok has just reminded me in our live chat that Inter-Europol has changed to an Orica anyway, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the Inter-Europol team. Are there any teams actually running a Ligier anymore? I know that there's no team running a Dallara, because Cetilar was the last one to be doing that, but are there any teams running a Ligier?
Well, there is a Keo Racing, which I think is Finland-based, and they have a Dallara, and I think they were planning on doing European Le Mans Series, but pulled out because probably financial impacts of the pandemic. Who else?
ARC Bratislava apparently have a Ligier for the WEC. That's it.
Yeah.
So they must be just being like, "Hey, you have a different chassis. Let us run it, because that means we'll get screen time." If they can keep it out of the garage. Oof. LMP3, right? LMP3. Let's talk about LMP3. I'm sorry to everyone who is a Ginetta fan. 16 cars for LMP3, mostly Ligiers, 2 Duquesnes. Is this the run-on effect of the handicap that the Duquesnes ran with last year? Or is there something else that's causing the convergence of LMP3 onto Ligier, do you think?
No, I don't think it was the handicap. I think it was confidence in Duquesne. as the entity compared to Norma when Norma was running it.
Yeah.
So if you didn't know already, people listening at home, Duquesne acquired the rights to the Norma program, and they pretty much just bought. I think they just bought the design from Norma, but then had to learn how to actually develop and deliver from scratch, as it were.
Yeah.
They didn't bring the knowledge from Norma across, so that comes into part supply and things like that. Duquesne was homologated late. That's not good for confidence, and also for early testing. So this kind of Ligier bias was baked in because you could test Ligiers earlier when we were going to the new chassis contracts, the new regulations. So everyone could test Ligiers earlier. They had more confidence in Ligier because they have really good part supply. And I think we're just seeing the carry-on effects of that now.
I
really
tend to agree with you there. The Duquesne versus Norma battle, the Norma versus Ligier battle was really fascinating, but it seems that Ligier has, through sheer economy of scale, just absolutely won the P320 battle at the moment. But we'll see whether or not Duquesne can peg their way back over the course of the coming season and of the seasons to come in the future. There are a few interesting points to pick apart in LMP3. LMP3 does tend to go under the radar just a little bit because of the required pit stop regulations and the lack of the lack of pro drivers across the board. But there's a lot of P3 cars to go through. But what is absolutely unsurprising in P3 at the moment is that United Autosports are going from strength to strength, even though they won last year's championship, came second in last year's championship, and also did the same for the Asian Le Mans series as well. They are pretty much at the top of their game, and they're bringing along Wayne Boyd, who was the silver driver last season. His teammate Tom Gamble has stepped up to LMP2. So now they have Robert Weldon, who was the bronze for that car last year, and Edward Cowhope. How do you say that?
No, I'm not French.
Yeah, it's Cauhaupe. So I'm going to say Cowhope or something along those lines. And then the second car, James Maguire, Duncan Tappy, and Andrew Bentley. They're incredibly solid lineups for LMP3 teams.
Yeah. It's kind of status quo as the evil empire of P3 still,
and continue. Hasn't I think Edward, did he win a Michelin Le Mans Cup winner? Was he a winner in that category?
Yes. So he raced with United Autosports, I believe, in Michelin Le Mans Cup and has won several rounds. So it's not losing Tom Gamble to P2. But yeah, we'll see how he does in ELMS instead of Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Yeah, the other sort of evil empire, you could say, in the LMP3 category has been into Europol. They've been a strong team for quite a long time. The combination of Martin Hipper and his co-driver, whose name escapes me because he's got a new one now. Who did it used to be?
Oh, bear with me.
Oh, come on. My Google Phil is weak. No, that's
Nigel Moore.
Boom. Nigel Moore, there it is. Nigel Moore. So he's gone. By the way, if you missed that. So Martin Hipper now has a new teammate, Hugo de Wilde, who I've never heard that name before in my life.
It rings bell, Hugo de Wilde, but I am shooting blanks at the moment. I hope they can bring the fight like they did before. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. That car was a incredible challenger at the top of the podium. They had something like 2 seasons worth of consecutive podiums or something like that in that chassis. It was just ridiculous what they were able to do. And that's, going up against teams like United, like Nielsen Racing, who are still very, very accomplished with, Andrew Wells and Colin Noble as a pairing. And their other car as well has got some pretty interesting names there. I think Nick Adcock and Austin McCusker, that's going to be a cool car to look at, the number 6 car.
Yeah, Nielsen Racing are kind of nipping at the heels all the time. Of United Autosports, so hopefully there's some good racing to watch in P3.
Also in this class, Cool Racing, they have a team for the LMP3 category. That's pretty cool. They're getting their own little driver ladder going, and my eyes has been caught by Team Virage, which is a pretty fascinating driver lineup. Rob Hodes, Garrett Grisk, and Charlie Cruz. Now, I know all of those names, but I don't know where I know all of those names from. I
think they did United Autosports in the past. I think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that does sound familiar, actually, because that sounds like the American United Autosports car from a few seasons ago. Or
yeah, it does ring a bell.
Hang on, I'm trying to think. The Nielsen Racing car that ran at Le Mans last season, that had Garrett Grist in it alongside Alex Capadia and Anthony Wells. So that's where he's come from. Yeah, interesting. So that caught my eye. That's a interesting little grouping. There are a few other interesting little teams. There's in fact 5, I think, new teams. So we've mentioned Cool Racing and Team Virage. Who are the other new teams that have made the jump into the LMP3 category?
Yeah, so the 3 that I've written down are MV2S Racing, bit of a tongue twister. And the key point about that is the previous or reigning GTE champion Fabian Laverne, I think was that Luzic Racing, has moved up into P3. So that's the key storyline there. Then there's Racing Experience, which I honestly know hardly anything or nothing about. It's a bit of a Benelux special, having Luxembourg and Tom Cloet represented from Belgium, represented on the driving lineups. And then one of my kind of dark horses is one Aim Viorba Corsa, who you might recognise the livery of, or the car, from over a year ago in the Asian Le Mans series. You might have even seen them in person.
I did. I did see them in person. Yes.
It was the highlighter yellow with the black scribbles on the side.
I actually have some photos of that car on my phone right now. Cool. Yeah, nice.
So they did really well. I do remember, was it Shanghai, where they were miles ahead, absolutely miles ahead of the rest of the P3 field, and they've kept. I think it was Alessandro Bressan.
Yes.
From that. And Lascaratos is experienced as well, and so's Fioravanti. So I think this might be a really good ELMS debut. And of course, Viorba Corsa, they used to run the Cetilar Dallara a while back. So an experienced team running the car as well. So yeah, I think this is one to look out for.
That is cool. I had not initially clicked on that before you mentioned it. Yeah, I specifically remember that car from the Bend, and I'm going to share some photos in the live chat now, because that car was dressed up in a bunch of sort of squiggles and racing references, etc., across the side of the car. So a lineup, if they look anything as cool as like they did at the Bend, and if they have Bressan, Lascaratos, and Fioravanti, that's going to be a really, really interesting car to watch. They should be a challenger. Maybe not an outright challenger, but they certainly could put some clip at the heels at some of the faster guys. Cool. So that's a pretty. There's some storylines there. There's definitely some storylines. Who do you reckon out of that? Oh, there's one team that I reckon we should very quickly mention before we do the predictions sort of comment. DKR Engineering, one of the two cars running a Duquesne, they had a pretty good Asian Le Mans series. It was marred in part by a few technical gremlins at Dubai. But Lawrence Hoare as the currently listed driver, and I think I'll see if I can find who else is in that car.
Alain Berg.
Yeah,
I don't know that one.
Not sure on Berg, but Lawrence Hoare, if he's able to put together anything like he was in the Asian Le Mans series in that Duquesne, that'll be a cool car to watch as well. So, with that in mind, who's your top 3 for the championship?
United Autosport, and into Europol competition.
Really, staying well away from Nielsen Racing.
Yeah, I there's so many like really good ones.
Even Graf,
as you mentioned,
like Sebastian Paget, Alec Trellier, David Drew, like getting away from that.
Yeah, I don't. I've got to be honest. I don't follow LMP3 that often during the races, so I kind of gravitate to the things that I know that stand out, and it's like, I remember watching Martin Hipper doing a lot of race-winning interviews at the end of the race. So, and United Autosports. Yeah. I remember they had the full podium picture in the Asia Le Mans series where they had first, second, and third.
Oh, that was
so. Yeah, that's in the memory too.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. LMP3 specifically is very hard to keep track of, and I think it's because of the required pit stop regulation. So it used to be that you had to do 2 mandatory pit stops over a certain length. For the Asian Le Mans series, that was 110 seconds, but that was 3 pit stops, and it was for every class that wasn't LMP2. With the European Le Mans series, it's only for P3, so it makes it much harder to keep track of unless you're intently focusing on that specific thing happening. So I didn't find it as difficult to follow in the Asian Le Mans series, but certainly in the ELMS, it does fly under the radar because you just don't know what people's strategies are, because some people will take that quick pit stop early, some people will take it later. It'll depend on who's in the car, what's in the car. It's very difficult to sort of keep an eye on. But in saying that, I will agree that the 2 United Autosports cars are clearly the best of the field. And I'll also add Nielsen Racing number 7, the Anthony Wells Colin Noble car. They've been super consistent in that class for a long time. I will really keep a keen eye on AM1 Valor Corsa. I reckon they will be someone to watch as well. But that is the P3 class. 17 cars. That's a serious subscription number for the P3 category.
16 or 17?
I've got 17 written here. How many are you counting?
16 on the entry list. But anyway, there are loads.
I've got 17. I think you're looking at the wrong thing. It's okay. We'll press on anyway. GTE. So GTE is kind of the... It should be better than what it is, I think, in the ELMS. It never seems to have the right punch as it does in, for example, the WT. But still, 10 cars this season. That's pretty cool. I see you've got written on our run sheet 9, but I'm again seeing 10 on the entry list. There's a lot of Ferraris. There's an absolute truckload of Ferraris, a few Porsches, and a single solitary Aston Martin for this category, all running the Goodyear rubber. Driver regulations mean 1 bronze, 1 silver, or lower, and then free for the third one. A few interesting bits and pieces of news in this category. And firstly, the thing that really strikes me is that the normal Aston Martins that we are used to seeing, the TF Sport Aston Martin or the Beach Dean AMR, Beach Dean have completely dropped off the radar, which is sad, but TF Sport are back without their championship winning car or championship winning driver, of course, because Salo Uluk is now running LMP2. So who's in that car nowadays?
Yeah, so the lineup currently is John Hartshorn as a bronze, Ollie Hancock as the silver, and then Ross Gunn as the pro driver. If you look back to the most recent season of Asian Le Mans series, you might recognise this car, this entry. It's changed slightly. So in the Asian Le Mans series, they had Charlie Eastwood as the pro driver. So they've swapped that out for Ross Gunn. It's still bloody good.
That's basically a 1-for-1 switch, really.
Exactly. So it's still there's still like precedent for this car based on previous racing. It's great to have another chassis in GTE.
Yeah.
And it's a good team. Yeah, it's a good lineup.
It is a good lineup. I'll be interested to see how the Aston Martin performs in the ELMS. It was the Le Mans winning car last year with Sally Yuluk, of course, but there are a lot of Ferraris to get their way around. We'll talk about the Ferraris in a second. Let's talk about Porsche quickly, because there's only the 2 Proton competition cars. Team Project One have moved up and stayed into the WEC, and there hasn't really been another Porsche team that's stepped into their place. But the 2 Porsche Proton competition cars have a lot of stories in them as well. Firstly, the Fassbender car will have eyes on it forever and a day. He has got Fabian Laser, and I'm pretty sure it's Fabian Laser. Felipe Laser, apologies. Felipe Laser and Ricard Leitz. So that's former GTE Pro World Champion Ricard Leitz in that car. What's the plan for Fassbender? What is he going to stay in the ELMS forever?
I guess his long-term plan is to keep making really cool movies about each race.
Yeah,
but also go to Le Mans. That's the long-term plan. Maybe next year, he could get
an auto invite,
a wild card slot, as it were.
So,
because I don't see them winning or earning an auto entry.
If the opportunity opened up this year, if a customer pulled out the last minute from Proton, do you reckon he'd be ready?
I mean, he would probably say he isn't ready.
Okay.
I think he should do it because, you're given a drive at Le Mans on a plate and you're a multi-millionaire and you're getting loads of help from Porsche who could probably pay for it for you because of the sponsorship deals and eyes on Porsches. That weekend, I'd do it.
Yeah.
You might not. You might underwhelm, and you want to go for it when you're in good stead to actually win it. But I think he should, just go for it.
Just take it, jump in, both feet.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm interested to see how his development comes along this season. We saw glimpses of something last season, but really he's got to start showing something a little more. Like even when Patrick Dempsey was having his sojourn in the Porsche, he had we saw more and more consistency, and then all of a sudden he was on the pace of everyone else doing well, and even had one of the best drives I've seen by a bronze driver in the wet at Fuji in the WEC to win that race. So I haven't seen that from Fassbender yet, so hopefully that comes along at some point.
Yeah, I think this season or last season was his first in multi-class.
Yeah, okay.
And these P2s can really spook drivers, coming out super fast behind them, trying to do these crazy overtakes because they're under pressure as well themselves to get past the GTs as quickly as possible. So he has had some coming together with, I remember at Paul Ricard, the P3 slamming on the brakes in front of him, moving across in the braking area and things like that. So some of these things aren't his fault. It's just he's got to be confident and not spooked around these P3s and P2s. And yeah, I think his experience is getting better and better. He just needs to put it all together.
Yeah.
And I think with that lineup, if he can get his drive time out of the way cleanly, they have an opportunity for race wins for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's not every day you have quite literally a GTE Pro World Champion driving your car. Like, damn.
I mean, it is if you're the other Proton competition.
This is true. Let's look at the other Proton competition car, just as an aside. So, Christian Reed, we know about Christian Reed. Jackson Evans, very excited to see him in the European Le Mans Series as well as the WEC. So that's a pretty big boon for the Antipodeans of the world, the Australian and New Zealand contingent. Very happy to see him there. And another GT Pro World Champion, Jimmy Bruni. Just easy as you like. Just cause. Bloody... It's ridiculous, the quality of drivers Porsche can just drop in on a customer car. She's like, here you go.
Yeah, they are properly going for it with this entry.
Yeah. Just a little bit. Because of course, Porsche, Proton need more than 4 entries. They need to have, like, the United Autosport amount of auto entries. For those who missed that number was 6 auto entries. So that's what they're going for. They're going to take them all. Let's look at the Ferraris, because there have been a few little changes and dips in the Ferraris as well. Firstly, the one that really surprised me is the number 55 Spirit of Race car, the one that we've seen for ages and ages and ages in that green colour with Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin and Aaron Scott, has now not got Aaron Scott in it. It's got David Perel, which is weird and scary, and I'm not sure that I like it, and I need to know why this has happened. Ollie, why has this happened?
So Aaron Scott, he does historic racing, I think, running cars for people, and he wants to concentrate more on his business as that grows. So he's stepping back from racing himself so much, and that's what he says, at least. And so that's what they've swapped out for David Perel as their new silver driver.
That's weird and scary, and as I said, I'm not sure that I like it. But hopefully we'll see that green Ferrari doing some work at the hands of all 3 of them, to be fair. Iron Lynx has 3 cars this time around. One of them, of course, is the Iron Dames. We'll get to them in a sec. Let's talk about the other cars quickly first. Claudio Schiavone, Giorgio Sonagiotto, and Paolo Roberti, the pretty standard Iron Lynx lineup in the 60. In the 80, that one has Matteo Cressoni and Rino Mastronardi, which is pretty standard. And then all of a sudden, you have Miguel Molina. Why is Miguel Molina racing in ELMS? They're doing a Porsche here over Iron Lynx.
Yeah, exactly. Just dropping in a GTA Pro driver out of nowhere into an amateur.
It's mental.
Class.
It is just mental. And now let's talk about the number 83, because much has been said about the number 83, and for good reason. The Iron Lynx, the Iron Dames, is the number 83 car. At the moment, that has Rahel Frey and Michelle Gatting listed, which is pretty standard. Of course, with the Iron Dames stepping up the WEC, that means that they've had to shuffle around a few of their drivers, because in the WEC entry, you have... Oh, no, that's still listed as the same 3 drivers. I'm confused by that. Anyway, it was meant to have... Yeah, go ahead. Maybe you know the story better than I do at the moment.
It's all a bit weird, but so originally, if you already knew the Iron Dames crew, which was Rahel Fry, Michelle Getting, and
Manuela Gosling.
And so they were supposed to step up to WEC as a trio. And then there was going to be a new Iron Dames squad to kind of backfill into ELMS, including Cat Leg.
Yeah.
And then, since, there's been a bit of a reshuffle. So Cat Leg then moved up from ELMS to WEC, and Gosner then moved away. She's still doing WEC, I think, but also she moved out of ELMS to do, was it Ferrari Challenge?
I'm not sure.
But anyway, and then one of the spots for the bronze, or supposed to be bronze, was picked up by Esme Hawkey, who previously did stuff with Porsche Carrera Cups.
Yes.
And then it turned out she isn't bronze.
It turns out she can't be bronze, is the thing. So the specific stipulation for a bronze driver is a driver that is in their first year of competition who is generally above 30. So you can't technically have a bronze rating if you are under 30 and it is not your first year of driving, at ACO level competition. And also specifically, you're not allowed to have won races in or won a championship in a regional or national series, of which the the Carrera Cup category she was running in. She was a championship winner, not as a pro driver, of course, but she was a championship
winner. It was Pro-Am.
Yeah, it was a Pro-Am. So even with that Pro-Am category victory, she is ineligible for a bronze rating. However, the paperwork that the FIA received indicated that she should have a bronze rating, so that's what she got listed with, but that has now since come out as a mistake. So, Iron Lynx don't have a bronze.
At the moment.
Oh, what a mess.
I'll do it.
Are you going to have a sex change as well, so you fit the Iron Ladies prerequisite?
No, but the Richard Mille women driving car had a dude driving it in the past, so there's precedent for that, I suppose.
Fair.
I've got no budget as well. Let's say. So yeah,
it's been a bit of a wild thing with that car. I think the management team of Esme Hawkey, so I think someone's been fired. And fun fact, do you want to know who the head of that management team is? Do you want to know who runs Esme Hawkey's management group?
Mark Blundell.
Mark Blundell. No, you ruined it. That's not fair.
It's public domain.
It is public domain, but no, it's more fun when I'm the one with the secret and squirrel information. Yeah, like former Le Mans racer Mark Blundell. How crazy is that?
It's a bit ridiculous. Yeah. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Who made that mistake? Someone must have gotten fired for that.
It's great press, though. Well, it's not great press.
It's not great press, but it's
good clicks.
It does keep them in the news.
You're getting your pictures showed on the front pages of DSC and maybe Sportscar 365 if anyone looks at that for any reason. And things like that. So you're getting your sponsors out. You're getting your sponsors out for the original announcement, then you're getting your sponsors shown in the reshuffle, you're getting your sponsors shown in the controversy post,
and
you're getting
it's
great.
a pretty good invitation for of interest, expressions of interest for a bronze driver, a female bronze driver who has a bit of dosh behind her and maybe wants to jump into an ACO series.
There's going to be another article about the new driver as well, so you're getting like 3 or 4 posts. I know I'm being cynical, but
absolutely.
Yeah,
it's all been a ruse, everyone. It's all a ruse.
They got you.
It will be interesting to see who they fit into that car. I would not necessarily be surprised to see Manuela Gosner step in at least for round 1. To be honest, I'm a little surprised that she's not just listed in the car already. But off the top of your head, how many female bronze drivers could step into that car? Who fits those 2 criteria?
Aren't a lot of the W Series drivers bronze rated?
I do not know because I've not ever watched a W Series race.
You just get if there's no clash, I think quite a lot of the good W Series entrants are still bronze rated. Probably not someone like
Jamie Chadwick,
Kimi Leinen, or Bascore, or someone like that. Maybe, I don't know. They might be silvers. But yeah, there should be a bronze driver available out there. Whether they have the budget, that's another question.
Yeah, I just looking at the list of drivers who should have been in the W Series last season. Someone if they wanted to pick someone based solely on star power, you could grab Abby Eaton. Maybe, I'm not sure if she's bronze, but she quite possibly could be. Tamsin Pepper, who I'm pretty sure is the sister of Jordan Pepper. that would be someone else that they could probably grab. She's 30, so she could very feasibly be a bronze driver. So there's certainly options there. It's just a matter of who they're going to pick out of that, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm putting together too many young drivers who might not be eligible. But I don't know. To be honest,
is Jackie X's daughter still racing?
Good question. I don't remember seeing her on an entry list recently.
Because
I don't know.
Certainly remember her racing at Le Mans with Pegasus Racing. Vanina X is her name.
Vanina, yeah.
So if she wants to come out of retirement, I'm sure she could go for a ride in the series.
And then who was the young lady that drove at Le Mans in P2 back when it was open topped, and her name is a champagne producer. She's part of a champagne dynasty. It's not Chandon, it's I can't remember. But she was recently downgraded from silver to bronze, I think, last year. So that could work.
Let's have a quick look. Inez Tattinger? Is that who you're thinking of?
Yeah, Tassinger.
Tassinger.
Yeah.
Cool.
So as part of the Tassinger champagne family. So there's a lot of funding there, that's for sure.
So yeah, this is just us spitballing here. It's been a very, very interesting little experiment. Other ELMS drivers and teams and etc. and what have you. Castle Racing also in only one listed driver at the moment. That's Wei Lu, formerly raced with formerly raced with JMW Motorsport. JMW Motorsport, on the other hand, have Jody Fannin and
Andrea Fontana.
And
Rodrigo Salas,
And Rodrigo Salas, yes. For some reason, the entry list only lists the first initial, and it's really annoying me. Rodrigo Salas we've seen before. Fontana have we seen before?
It rings a bell. Yeah. But that might be from GT3 racing.
Yeah, so he has 2 listed races in the European Le Mans series, but no results to speak of that I can see. So, yeah, a lot of Ferraris, and then of course the big scary Ferrari is the number 88 AF Corsa Ferrari of Francois Perotto, Manuel Collard, and Rivera, whose first
Alessio
name?
Rivera.
That's a pretty scary team. It's good to see Collard and Perotto back together again.
Yeah, he was kind of dumped a bit from the WEC lineup because of Nielsen being so bloody good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Collard is a gold-rated driver, though, is the thing. So he was actually racing.
Yeah, but he's also old.
Yeah. This is true. It kind of wigs me out that I think it was Emmanuel Collard was racing like Group C in the 80s. Like, that's wild.
I think he's one of the longest-serving pro drivers in ACO rules racing. Pretty much ever.
And I think he has the streak for the longest Le Mans starts consecutively. So sorry, he wasn't racing with Group C. Sorry, he was racing GT2 from 1995 with Labour competition at Le Mans. So he did, I think it was from 1995 to 2017 consecutively before getting dumped because Collard wanted a better pro. Sorry, yeah, Perotto wanted a better pro.
Yeah, they get to hang out. You know, if you didn't already know, have a look at Francois Perotto's Instagram page because he's got an insane car collection.
Really?
Including Porsche RS Spider, the Dutch car. He's got GT1 Porsches. He's got the car that finished second at Le Mans overall, the Peugeot LMP1. What else has he got? He's got an SMP Racing liveried Ferrari GT2. What's that? 575? Can't remember. And he just goes to track days and races and hangs out driving with Collard. So it's not a bad gig.
It's not. It's kind of, man. I wish I had I wish that was my life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just be a banker, and then you'll get there
one day. But that is the European Le Mans Series GT3 or GTE, sorry, grid. Wow, that was a slip up.
Whoop.
What do you reckon? Who do you reckon is the scariest looking team?
I think AF Corsa look pretty strong. Proton, obviously, 77 just looks ridiculous.
Yeah, that's scary. And for those who don't know, you actually have seen Jackson Evan race. He's raced in the Icebreak Coffee Porsche 911 at Bathurst 12, the Bathurst 12 Hour, the car that Matt Campbell raced in the year before and finished like second overall in. So you have seen him race. You know that he's good. You just probably the name doesn't ring a bell off the top of your head. And that is, of course, if you didn't even that's of forgetting the fact that he almost won Super Cup last season as well.
For people that know his name, this is like a scary good entry.
Oh yeah.
For people that don't, look out.
Yes. Yeah. Anyone else? So you mentioned AF Corsa and Proton. I think that's
it. To be honest, for me, for the front runners.
Yeah, they are. They seem to be just a step above the rest. Like, even TF Sport, Ross Gunn, great, but Ollie Hancock and John Harson is not really fill you with a lot of confidence in terms of overall aspirations.
Yeah, they don't have, like, a legend, like we mentioned with the two Porsches and the Ferrari of Miguel Molina. Ross Gunn is still bloody quick, but he's still pretty new to being a pro.
Yeah,
and like being the front runner for setting up a car and being a driver's coach and things like that. So in that respect, he's still inexperienced, but he's still good. There are other entries that look quite good. I'm looking forward to see what the Spirit of Race, the number 55, can do.
Yeah.
I really like that entry. Soft spot for them. But yeah, I think it's a fight between the 77 Proton and
the 88
AF Course. Yeah.
I agree with you 100% there. That'll be a pretty thrilling challenge throughout the season, I think. It'll be interesting to see who fires first at Barcelona. A few little extra bits and pieces that we should clean up on before we stop talking about the ELMS. Firstly, there is an extra entry, at least one extra entry that we'll see throughout the season. And this is, we detailed this as part of our last podcast, detailing the Le Mans invitations. The SRT 41 Frederic Sasse Foundation will be doing a few races in the lead up to Le Mans. So we're expecting to see them at least at one of the races, possibly at another one. Do you reckon?
Yeah, originally for the normal Le Mans slot, I think they were going to do all of the rounds leading up to that. They might just do maybe half of the ones of the season.
Yeah, Le Castellet and Monza?
Especially. Yeah, I don't know, because of the high speed nature. I think preparing for Le Mans, I don't really know which one they're going to pick. They're probably going to pick Spa as well for the lead up, because I think Spa currently is.
Spa is.
Oh no, it's
to be
Spa is
after
afterwards.
Le Mans.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah,
probably Monza then.
Probably Monza. But all four of them would be good.
Yes. All of them would be good. We want to see more cars on the grid.
Yes.
And what about WEC teams? We're expecting them to do a few of the races if they can get to them. Yeah,
with the whole politics shift, with the rules of P2, the WEC P2 teams are going to try and get as much testing and running as they possibly can to kind of catch up with what they've missed out testing wise, and that includes racing in WEC. So they did it last year with the compressed season. Quite a few teams raced in the Spa ELMS round.
Quite a few of the GT teams, particularly.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to see that come again. We've already seen the racing team Nederland commit to the Monza round, because I think they're 1 week apart, the ELMS and the WEC races. I expect more to see more announcements in P2 and maybe GT to do this kind of crossover.
Because it's a no-brainer, basically. You turn up a week early and you basically get an extra round of testing for free. Well, not for free, but...
A lot of these teams as well, because WEC hasn't been to Monza like in a long time, it's a great opportunity to also for the amateurs to practice at the track, but also gather data at the track.
It'll be interesting to see when we get to that round who performs well come the WEC race, especially considering if any of them do the double duty at the ELMS race. Any other points you want to make about the ELMS before we wrap this all up?
Watch it.
It's
it. Free.
Absolutely. It's the best Sportscar series in the world at the moment. Free on YouTube. Go watch it on YouTube. It's free. Search European Le Mans series on YouTube. Also good to watch as well with it is Michelin Le Mans Cup. They'll be joining all of the ELMS rounds as well. That's basically like the support feeder series, I guess. It's LMP3 and GT3, so it's pretty, like, they put on a decent show when they're, not crashing.
Yeah, it's good fun, and it also gives you an indication of where some drivers have come from when they move up, or if they move up to ELMS.
Especially,
so the drivers, the names to look out for.
Absolutely. That is the European Le Mans series. Remember, it is going to be 6 rounds, and there's going to be a lot of action, and it has consistently been the best sports car championship over the last few seasons, and you can watch it for free, which... Considering where the WEC is at the moment with the paywall and everything, like the fact that you can get that sort of quality for free on YouTube is pretty damn great, and that's why it is my favorite sports car championship at the moment. I'm not sure if you agree, Ollie, but I'm pretty sure you do.
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
Yeah. First round. So the official testing starts next week on the 13th, which I'm pretty sure is a Tuesday rather. So probably will be happening when this podcast gets released, depending on how quick I get my acting gear. And then first race will be this weekend, this coming weekend on the 18th. Make sure you download your Racing Line app to give you all the updates and notifications so that way you don't miss a session, because you don't want to miss a session of ELMS action. It's going to be great. And it's just going to be great. All the race codes will be up on WC throughout the year, and I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm going giddy just looking at this calendar. It makes me so happy that we're going to be back racing again very, very soon. Thank you very much for joining me, Ollie.
Thanks for having me.
As it's always a pleasure. Thank you, everyone who joined us in the live chat, especially Bujok giving us those extra bits of information when we needed them. Thank you to the Racing Line for sponsoring us. Thank you, our listeners, for making this something that we can still enjoy doing 6 years now after we started doing it. I've been Michael Zalavari. Thank you very much for listening. Peace out!
Do, 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 do. Do, do, do.